Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network. Good afternoon, America. I'm Robert McNeely. As President Trump to sign executive orders very soon. We will go there to the White House to showcase all of that as he met earlier today in our earlier broadcast with President Erdogan of Turkey. So much news happening in regards to bilateral and multilateral diplomacy at the 80th session of the UN General Assembly this week. We also have some playback from the president's speech regarding multiple topics he covered with the international body, specifically wanting to end biological warfare and the procurement of those specific weapons, to the ending of drug and fentanyl trafficking coming from Venezuela, to making sure that Iran does not have a nuclear weapon, and pushing back on the fact that it is about sovereignty and cultural differences to be celebrated, but that borders matter, and that the willy-nilly disguising and taking away of what made these different countries great institutions, especially in the West, should no longer be practiced through the art of globalism. He did not have necessarily every nation as a fan in that chamber, but it is true that this country is, again, feared and respected by those abroad, as President Trump always offers that olive branch, because that escalator that shifted for about 20 seconds and almost caused the president and the first lady to fall at the top of the escalator steps. He had the opportunity to meet with President Lula of Brazil, two men that have incredible differences. If you listen to Lula's fascist rhetoric before President Trump took that stage, you know that it will be a very interesting discussion come 1 week from now. But it seems like it was as if it was fate for the two leaders to meet in the entry hall. Also, the teleprompter was not working, but fortunately, we do not need a president who needs a teleprompter like we did with Barack Hussein Obama and the auto pen of yesteryear. Also, the hall itself, unless they had translating earpieces, they could not hear the president speaking. So mic issues at the UN General Assembly in New York City. So we saw all of that with his speech, but nevertheless, President Trump bringing humor to it and a focus to make America great again and to respect sovereignty. It was truly MAGA 2.0 and the peace through strength policies that have made America safe again, as this domestic approach has been one that I think the world can learn from, and in turn, a complete reshaping of the global economy with President Trump's use of tariffs. And for a legacy media that says that doesn't work when it comes to free and fair trade, I would suggest looking to all of these countries and leaders who have come to visit President Trump right there at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, because we know that many have conceded, including the European Union, that they were taking advantage of the United States for far too long. And this president simply will not go with the status quo, but rather ask those important questions as to why the neoliberal and neocon agendas of the past put bureaucrats and those in the federal city, both Republican and Democrat elected officials, ahead of the middle class and a populist movement that is truly making this country great again. And if, Mr. Producer, we have any of the clips from that speech the other day, we can go to those and feature all of that right from off the top there. President Trump not mincing words at the General Assembly.
Not only is the UN not solving the problems it should, too often, it's actually creating new problems for us to solve. The best example is the number one political issue of our time, the crisis of uncontrolled migration. It's uncontrolled. Your countries are being ruined. The United Nations is funding an assault on Western countries and their borders. In 2024, the UN budgeted $372 million in cash assistance to support an estimated 624,000 migrants journeying into the United States. Think of that. The UN is supporting people that are illegally coming into the United States, and then we have to get them out. The UN also provided food, shelter, transportation, and debit cards to illegal aliens. Can you believe that? On the way to infiltrate our southern border. Millions of people came through that southern border. Just a year ago, millions and millions of people were pouring in, 25 million altogether over the 4 years of the incompetent Biden administration. And now we have it stopped, totally stopped. In fact, they're not even coming anymore because they know they can't get through. But what took place is totally unacceptable. The UN is supposed to stop invasions, not create them and not finance them.
President Trump then went on to confront Russian oil trade embargoes and why China is propping them up and funding all of that. He has recently solved the problem with new trade deals with the European Union dating back to the summer's trip to Trump Turnberry in Scotland, a $600 billion deal in trade with a 15% threshold of the tariff for Europeans to access American markets. So we have farming, ranching, from poultry to dairy to cattle as well, that the Europeans once weren't buying into because of the poisons that were being put into the food supply. You go also to a $720 billion energy deal. Russia with Nord Stream 2 was controlling Germany and the whole of Europe, which was just unbelievable. You think about Aberdeen, Scotland, somewhere that's very special to, and near and dear to the heart of President Trump, his mom being born in Scotland. That was the oil and gas capital of the United Kingdom. Getting back on track. So cut 3, Mr. Producer, President Trump speaking out against Russian oil and the fact that if these practices continue, he will slap sanctions on the Russian Federation.
China and India are the primary funders of the ongoing war by continuing to purchase Russian oil. But inexcusably, even NATO countries have not cut off much Russian energy and Russian energy products, which, as you know, I found out about 2 weeks ago, and I wasn't happy. Think of it. They're funding the war against themselves. Who the hell ever heard of that one? In the event that Russia is not ready to make a deal to end the war, then the United States is fully prepared to impose a very strong round of powerful tariffs, which would stop the bloodshed, I believe, very quickly. But for those tariffs to be effective, European nations, all of you are gathered here right now, would have to join us in adopting the exact same measures. I mean, you're much closer to this. We have an ocean in between. You're right there. And Europe has to step it up. They can't be doing what they're doing. They're buying oil and gas from Russia while they're fighting Russia. It's embarrassing to them, and it was very embarrassing to them when I found out about it, I can tell you that. They have to immediately cease all energy purchases from Russia. Otherwise, we're all wasting a lot of time. So I'm ready to discuss this. We're going to discuss it today with the European nations, all gathered here. I'm sure they're thrilled to hear me speak about it, but that's the way it is. I like to speak my mind and speak the truth.
Courage simply cannot be taught, and the late, great Charlie Kirk reminded us of that on college campuses and in the churches. But also President Trump showcasing that at the 80th session of the United Nations General Assembly, making it very clear that Iran, cut number 4, can never have a nuclear weapon.
There is no more serious danger to our planet today than the most powerful and destructive weapons ever devised by man, of which the United States, as you know, has many. Just as I did in my first term, I've made containing these threats a top priority, starting with the nation of Iran. My position is very simple. The world's #1 sponsor of terror can never be allowed to possess the most dangerous weapon. That's why shortly after taking office, I sent the so-called Supreme Leader a letter making a generous offer. I extended a pledge of full cooperation in exchange for a suspension of Iran's nuclear program. The regime's answer was to continue their constant threats to their neighbors and U.S. interests throughout the region.
Speaking truth to power at the globalist building known as the United Nations. President Trump also with a peacemaking message solving 7 conflicts in roughly 7 months or so, with Russia and Ukraine being the big one on the forefront of most minds. But nevertheless, conflicts like Rwanda and Congo to Cambodia to Thailand and Iran and Israel, also countless others throughout the Middle East, Africa, and Asia and Europe, all having a huge consequence on countless Christian lives. Azerbaijan to Armenia being one of them. President Trump caring about the people of the world.
Likewise, in a period of just 7 months, I have ended 7 unendable wars. They said they were unendable. You're never going to get them solved. Some were going for 31 years, 2 of them, 31, think of it, 31 years. One was 36 years. One was 28 years. I ended 7 wars. And in all cases, they were raging with countless thousands of people being killed. This includes Cambodia and Thailand, Kosovo and Serbia, the Congo and Rwanda, a vicious, violent war that was, Pakistan and India, Israel and Iran, Egypt and Ethiopia, and Armenia and Azerbaijan. It included all of them. No president or prime minister, and for that matter, no other country has ever done anything close to that. And I did it in just 7 months. It's never happened before. There's never been anything like that. I'm very honored to have done it. It's too bad that I had to do these things instead of the United Nations doing them. And sadly, in all cases, the United Nations did not even try to help in any of them. I ended 7 wars, dealt with the leaders of each and every one of these countries, and never even received a phone call from the United Nations offering to help in finalizing the deal. All I got from the United Nations was an escalator that on the way up stopped right in the middle. If the First Lady wasn't in great shape, she would have fallen. But she's in great shape. We're both in good shape. We both stood. And then a teleprompter that didn't work. These are the 2 things I got from the United Nations, a bad escalator and a bad teleprompter. Thank you very much. And by the way, it's working now. It just went on. Thank you. I think I should just do it the other way. It's easier. Thank you very much. I didn't think of it at the time because I was too busy working to save millions of lives. That is the saving and stopping of these wars. But later I realized that the United Nations wasn't there for us. They weren't there. I thought of it really after the fact, not during these negotiations, which were not easy. That being the case, what is the purpose of the United Nations? The UN has such tremendous potential. I've always said it. It has such tremendous, tremendous potential. But it's not even coming close to living up to that potential. For the most part, at least for now, all they seem to do is write a really strongly worded letter and then never follow that letter up. It's empty words, and empty words don't solve war. The only thing that solves war and wars is action.
Always bringing his signature comedic efforts to every speech he does, but especially to world powers and those world leaders across the globe. But the USA is hot, hot, hot like never before, thanks to President Trump and his leadership, as we await President Trump to sign executive orders with this final clip from the United Nations speech just the other day.
Madam President, Mr. Secretary General, First Lady of the United States, distinguished delegates, ambassadors, and world leaders. 6 years have passed since I last stood in this grand hall and addressed a world that was prosperous and at peace in my first term. Since that day, the guns of war have shattered the peace I forged on 2 continents. An era of calm and stability gave way to one of the great crises of our time. And here in the United States, 4 years of weakness, lawlessness, and radicalism under the last administration delivered our nation into a repeated set of disasters. 1 year ago, our country was in deep trouble, but today, just 8 months into my administration, we are the hottest country anywhere in the world, and there is no other country even close.
President Trump laying down the law at the United Nations General Assembly. He had 32 meetings following that, either bilateral or multilateral, with other nations throughout the world. As we look at the bottom of the hour, 3:30 on the East Coast, 12:30 on the West Coast. Earlier today, meeting with President Erdogan of Turkey to discuss the sale of F-35s, discuss the sale of other Javelins and battalion pieces and military equipment that is being sold now to NATO as a result of the Russian aggression, continued aggression and offensive against Ukraine. President Trump also meeting with the Ukrainian President Zelensky, and we'll likely have further discussions with Vladimir Putin of Russia. But as we know, there were promises made, promises not kept by Vladimir Putin when it comes to the pursuit of peace, whether it be from the Anchorage, Alaska summit dating back to August 15th of this year. 1 week later, and roughly slightly over 1 month ago now, those European leaders coming to the White House to discuss how to seek that peace even further. So President Trump working diligently on that, stating he thought that it might be an easier situation, but has conceded that it was not as easy as thought because of the hatred that both leaders have for one another, and that he's fed up with both of their antics, and rightfully so, because he has a good relationship with the two, but they clearly have great different disagreements on how this territory will now be broken up. So we'll see as that news continues to unfold as we are here on Thursday, September 25th. Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network. President Trump will sign executive orders very soon, and we will have that there for you at the White House, as we had earlier today with his meetings with President Erdogan. And as we continue to honor the life and legacy of a friend, Charlie Kirk, coming from Sunday's memorial to see all of the blessings that have unfolded from what was tragedy. But the good Lord does provide positive revelation and also revitalization of a nation when we learn that if we just turn to him and turn back to his ways and recognize that the rights come from God, not government, he will bless and heal this land if we ask for that repentance, something that Charlie often reminded us of. We also had the pleasure of speaking with Michael Kunzler, the co-owner of All Family Pharmacy, earlier today, and we could play that interview for you now. Michael Kunzler, co-owner of All Family Pharmacy, your go-to online pharmacy. Be sure to visit allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. Michael, we know that ivermectin has been at the center of controversy for recent years, but how significant is the announcement for the future of cancer research in Florida with what Governor Ron DeSantis helped put out yesterday on World Cancer Research Day?
I think it's huge. I think it's very important. And it's not just about ivermectin. It's about all medications out there. There are so many different generic drugs that can be repurposed for an alternative use. That's what they're talking about right now, repurposing ivermectin basically for cancer. And it's a cheaper option. Casey DeSantis went over the cost effectiveness of a generic like ivermectin and how it's only a couple of dollars a tablet, whereas these chemo, radiation, or other alternative therapies cost thousands and thousands of dollars. So obviously there is some sort of great basis off of the cost alone, how much drug companies wouldn't make compared to how much us as Americans would save if we were to contract cancer or be trying to be preventative of cancer. So that in itself is huge.
And we know the good First Lady of Florida, having gone through her battle with cancer herself, and in certain situations, like you said, Michael, with radiation and chemo treatment, not only making people very tired, but in some cases being poisoned by these things, and in other cases, cancers returning. But many people have had a hard time finding a doctor who's willing to prescribe ivermectin for one reason or the other. Sometimes it's big pharma, sometimes it's simply availability. How does your pharmacy make that process even easier and accessible for your patients?
Yeah, excellent question. When we started in 2020, 2021, the biggest hurdle that patients had was, where can I find ivermectin? And then they found the source who would dispense them ivermectin. And then how do I get a prescription for it? My doctor won't prescribe it. So we came into play and we decided, hey, why don't we just put both together, which has been unheard of in most cases outside of hims and hers for obviously other uses. But we've taken the protocol of, here's a doctor, here's a pharmacy that'll dispense the medication. See the doctor, tell them your medical history, go over everything with them. If they feel it's safe and effective, they will prescribe it for you. And they'll teach you how to take it in a safe and effective way. And then here's the pharmacy that will dispense it and ship it to you. We put everything, basically, it's not under one roof, but it's basically under one roof for the patient so that it's very user-friendly, very easy to do. And we provide the doctor as well as the pharmacy that'll dispense both medications, which, if you know, since 2020 has been very difficult to find.
Now, what strengths and dosage options do you offer for ivermectin specifically, and how can the patients figure out which one is right for their needs?
So we offer 6 milligram, 9 milligram, 12, 18, 20, no, not 24 anymore, 30 and 45 milligram. Now, with the cancer research and the physicians that we work with, these are licensed doctors. This is not information we are coming up with. These come direct from physicians. It's a weight-based protocol, but it incurs a more aggressive dose of ivermectin. Traditionally speaking, most humans would take about 12 to 18 milligrams for specific parasitic conditions. When it comes to the cancer protocol, they're taking somewhere upwards of 3 to 5 times the amount. So it is a much higher dosage. Obviously, every doctor has their own dosage. Every patient would take it based on stage of cancer. But when it comes down to it, we provide a dose calculator that'll give you accurate information that would help provide you or direct you in the direction best suited for your weight, because ultimately the drug is weight-based. And if you want to take it in these high dosages, we have pharmacists on staff, we have doctors on staff that will speak with you in how to take it in a safe and effective way. Because again, we are going to inform you that the cancer research does provide a higher dose. But I wouldn't be too skeptical of it. The higher dose does not automatically mean toxicity. In the toxicity realm, based on the physician's information we've been provided, it's somewhere upwards of 2 milligrams per kilogram of body weight, whereas our doctors are prescribing anywhere from 0.6 milligrams per kilogram of body weight and 1 milligram, which is half of toxicity level, which traditionally speaking should be a comfortable range. But again, that just means increased side effects.
Now, have you seen a rise in patients moving towards the off-labels regarding cancer research and also other treatments for other diseases, not just the parasitic infections, which is really a traditional use for ivermectin?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. There is been a massive rise in cases where people are coming to us and they want to take it not only for cancer, but cancer is by far number one. They want to use it for an inflammation response, arthritis. They want to try it for MS. We're not going to sit here and say, hey, this is going to work. We're going to guarantee it. We have no idea whether it's going to work for MS or it's going to work for arthritis or some sort of inflammation response. But what we will tell you is we'll point you in the right direction to find information that you could do your own research on. And if you decide to go that route, you want to purchase it from us, we're going to then teach you how to use it in a safe and effective manner that would help make sure that the medication doesn't harm you and that we hope that it helps you. This is called off-label or off-label use or repurposed drug that we would do. So Again, the FDA does not like it. The government does not like it. Drug manufacturers do not like it. They don't want the liability. We don't want a liability of people getting hurt taking medication. So that's why we're here to help you take it in a safe and effective manner so that you don't get hurt taking it.
And have you heard any feedback from patients who have gone this route with the off-label? And what guidance would you provide for those who are looking to have ivermectin and other life-saving prescriptions to make that more informed decision about how they can tackle a cancer diagnosis or even another disease that might be a first-time trial for them?
Sure. We've got tremendous results. We've heard from some of our patients. A few of them I speak to on a weekly basis now, even when they're cancer-free. Again, the medication, we're not sure if it's the medication that's doing it, if it's traditional chemo or radiation. I have a couple patients who didn't even take chemo or radiation or were finished taking chemo and radiation and nothing was working. I had a couple patients who were on some sort of trial drug, which we would call an immunotherapy, but it's a trial drug. So again, the FDA never recommended it for it, but they're trying to see if it helps. It's an expensive drug, but they were also taking ivermectin and mebendazole, in some cases fenbendazole, and their cancer is either stopping, it's not growing, or they're cancer-free. Some of them, we have patients who are just kind of at a stagnant level, which, and as you know, as a patient who suffer from cancer, a stagnant level where the cancer stops growing is sometimes a good thing. In many cases, it's just how do we overcome that hurdle? I'm not an oncologist. I'm never going to pretend to be an oncologist. I'm not a doctor or a medical physician. I just receive information and I pass that along. Again, I'm a big proponent of do your own research, talk to your family, do what's right for yourself, and come to us. Like President Trump always says, you always have the right to try. All Family Pharmacy will provide you that right to try. We're going to try to teach you the best way possible. And we have a staff of doctors and pharmacists who will make sure that if you're taking the medication, again, it's in a safe and effective manner.
And any side effects that have been recently seen with the off-label use. Again, this is unprecedented and very welcome, given the fact that, as you mentioned, Michael, President Trump, his team really leading that way in the last decade of right to try and taking on big pharma, because one size doesn't necessarily fit all.
Yeah, that's correct. Side effects. Side effects is a long list of every drug has, and the drug manufacturers list them. Our traditional side effects are upset stomach, diarrhea, dizziness. Again, that correlates to an upset stomach. There's a long list. We have over 100,000 people who have taken ivermectin. I've maybe heard twice from my team of pharmacists about side effects like edema, which is swelling of a limb, which could be major side effects, especially if it's from the medication. Rashes, very little rashes. There are not many side effects from ivermectin. But again, every person's different. Every dose will determine whether you're increasing your risk of side effects. And then again, we're going to teach you how to combat them. What are ways we can go around these side effects or take the medication in a manner that's going to prohibit or limit the amount of side effects we are going to get from it? Ivermectin's got a pretty safe protocol. It's been around for 40 years or longer. You know, there's millions and millions of people around the world. Nobody dies from this medication. Nobody's going blind from it. You know, like the Ozempic trials, what's going on right now with Novo Nordisk and pancreatitis and all this crazy side effects. Ivermectin doesn't have those profiles. Mebendazole doesn't have those profiles. Nobody cares about the drug because, like Casey DeSantis said on her speech today, the drug costs pennies, dollars. A 3 milligram tablet costs like $1. A 6 milligram tablet would cost $2. A 12 milligram tablet would cost $4. A drug company is not going to want to sell that for cancer. They're not going to want to find an alternative purpose for it because it's not making them money. They're going to sell you a medication that's going to make you money, like Keytruda. Keytruda, I've got nothing against it. It's an immunotherapy. It's in trials. And, you know, I hope it could lead the way in cancer research. It's $70,000 a shot. You got to do it for 6 months. You do the math. Most insurance companies won't even pay for that. So who's stuck for it in that bill to try to save their life? $70,000 for one shot? That's insane.
And that's something that's an important feature of your online pharmacy, really leading the way on these life-saving medications. The fact that you don't need to have insurance and the fact that it is actually affordable. And why is that, Michael, that ivermectin and some of these other life-saving medications are cost effective, as we saw from the governor and first lady of Florida with this breaking news research?
Yeah, so it's affordable because it's a generic. It's been around for decades. It's been on the market. It's gone through its patents, which is why, all these drugs are making so much money, is because the drug companies patent it. Nobody could touch it for 10 years. They make a couple $1 billion. They walk away. They find the next drug. Once it's off patent, it then becomes a generic. And then it becomes sold at pennies on the dollar, or a couple dollars, $10, $20, $30. They don't care about it anymore. They've made their money. They're on to the next drug. They're on to the next research. One of the biggest things on why we don't take insurance, my father passed away from cancer. He passed away waiting on insurance to cover a trial drug. And it shouldn't happen that way. People shouldn't have to wait for medications. It's kind of sad to see. It's kind of sad to watch. Insurance forces people, and I hate saying this, who have cancer to wait. Why do they have to wait? Out of all the people in the world, why do they need to wait 30 days? Why do you need to do 7 diagnostics tests on them? You've done it for 6 months to a year. You have all the data you need. The patient is not doing well. Why are they waiting? And, I suffer from that. My family suffered from it. So one of the reasons why we don't do insurance is for that specific reason. And the second is they block everything you want to do. They block every medication you want. They determine what you should take. It shouldn't be up to them. It should be up to the doctor, and it should be up to yourself. So
yeah, I'm so sorry to hear that, Michael. Thank you for sharing, because it's important to remember to stay ahead on these things, and prevention is the key. But also, yes, that there is a keep you sick system that does exist in America. And fortunately, it's great organizations like yours at All Family Pharmacy and this Make America Healthy Again movement trying to solve that problem. Right now, it's RSBN 10 for 10% off. Anything else you can share from allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN, where people can receive these life-saving medications?
Yeah, so we've designed a Substack. We've gone over it a few times. We're providing information coming direct from some of our physicians, PhDs, pharmacists on staff. That's going to go over a lot of these protocols that people have no idea about. And we want them to read it, and we want them to do their own research. These are ways that we could provide you information without big tech blocking us. A biggest problem with us being able to get you some sort of trial or data that's on a repurposed drug like ivermectin is Google, Yahoo, all these Gmail accounts. They're going to block us from emailing you this. I'm sure ivermectin is a keyword that gets blocked in Google or Gmail. I would not be surprised. As you know, on Facebook and the Meta platforms and YouTube, you could barely even say the term ivermectin or fenbendazole. I've been in a ton of groups where they actually have to spell it incorrectly in order for the keyword to pass by that. So we've created a Substack that's going to provide the information. We can say the word ivermectin. We could say the word menbendazole or fenbendazole. We're going to provide all of the information that you could read about it. And then what we're going to do is we're going to encourage you to do your own research. Come back to us with any questions, and we'll definitely assist you.
And it's a great staff of patriots, doctors, nurses, pharmacists who know a thing or two about this arena, and truly leading on that online work to bring you life-saving medications in 2 to 3 days to your door. It's very convenient, is it not?
Yes, we try to get it as fast as possible. Due to legality purposes, it's usually up to 5 business days, but we've gotten better. We're beating out our competition. We offer overnight services, up until like 3 or 4 p.m. We still have to get it to a doctor. They still need to either speak with you, review your profile, go over a few things. But we provide lightning fast delivery, 2 to 5 days tops. Some people get it next day, which is amazing.
Excellent news. Michael Kunzler, co-owner of All Family Pharmacy. You can get that now at allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. Thanks for joining us again, and we'll see you soon on the right side of history.
Thank you.
Again, you can visit allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN for 10% off now of life-saving medications. Soon, President Trump to sign executive orders, so stay with us here at Right Side Broadcasting Network as strong spending and narrowing the trade gap drives the Trump economy with its explosive growth. America's economic resurgence under President Trump continues. Revised data showing an even stronger real GDP growth of 3.8% in quarter two of this year, thanks to the Trump agenda of tax cuts, deregulation, tariffs, and energy abundance. And this is just the beginning. New data from today also shows core capital goods orders beat expectations, paving the way for robust investment growth in Q3. Now, President Trump pledged to make America wealthy again, and with Joe Biden's inflation crisis tamed, we are now laying the groundwork for long-term restoration of American greatness. So all according to White House Deputy Press Secretary Kush Desai. Now, second quarter GDP was revised up to 3.8% once again, proving the so-called experts wrong as strong consumer spending, rising incomes, and a narrowing trade gap define President Trump's second term and this economic resurgence. Here's what you need to know. Second quarter GDP was revised up from its last upward revision, reflecting a narrowing trade gap and strong consumer spending. Real disposable income growth was also revised up to 3.1%, showing that income growth remains strong and wages are rising. This 3.8% growth is the fastest pace of economic growth in nearly 2 years. Now, manufacturers' demand for durable goods surged in August, smashing expectations and signaling confidence and future investment in manufacturing and domestic producers ramp up capacity. Factory production grew last month for goods and services producing, while output for government decreased, highlighting that the growth is being driven by the private sector right here in America. Small business confidence is at the highest level it nearly has been in 1 decade, according to the United States Chamber of Commerce, and the new home sales soared in August, hitting a 3-year high. Summer 2025 was the strongest market for home buyers in more than a decade. So promises made, promises kept. This administration making America wealthy again, while also making America great again. As President Trump is to sign executive orders, we'll bring you right there after a quick commercial break for sponsorship. Don't change the dial. It's Thursday night. It's Right Side Broadcasting Network.
Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network, your trusted conservative news outlet. At RSBN, we deliver the truth when the mainstream media falls short. Since 2015, we've proudly broadcasted every single one of President Trump's iconic MAGA rallies, bringing you the excitement and energy live before anyone else. By watching RSBN, you get an unfiltered front row view of the action on the ground. We interview the crowds to give a voice to millions of Americans just like you. We show you President Trump's speeches in their entirety, free from interruptions and censorship. We cover the stories that matter to you with the integrity and passion you deserve. Thank you for choosing RSBN as your home for America First News. Together, we stand strong, united, and informed. So join us and be part of the right side of history.
I'm excited to announce that we're having our biggest 3-in-1 sale ever with a limited edition product, a back-in-stock special, and a closeout deal you won't find anywhere else. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to get our MyPillow bed sheets, only $29.88. Any color, any style, any size, even kings. Regular $119.98, only $29.88. Once they're gone for good. How about our My Towels? They're finally back in stock, but not for long. Get a 6-piece My Towel set, regular $69.98, now only $39.98. And for the first time and the only time ever, get our limited edition premium My Pillows. They're made with Giza cotton and designer gusset. Queen $17.98, Kings only $19.98. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to get the best offers ever. Quantities are extremely limited, so order now.
And welcome back to Right Side Broadcasting Network. Some breaking news. Oklahoma Superintendent Ryan Walters, someone who's a guest of the show on a regular basis, will resign and leave office to run for the Teacher Freedom Alliance. And also Governor Stitt is expected to appoint a replacement. So we'll watch that story as Ryan Walters, the superintendent of the Oklahoma school districts, was hoping to put a series together, a speaking series, just as Louisiana State has done in honor of the late, great Charlie Kirk. So we'll watch that very closely. Also, the screwworm is dangerously close to a situation here in the United States. Texas officials urge residents to check their pets after a confirmed infection of flesh-eating New World screwworm in a cow near the border. Again, another reason why it's always good to shut down the border, and that's happening now 250 days roughly into the new administration. There's also news coming from Democrats pressing law firms for details about tens of millions of dollars in free legal services they're providing to President Trump. So maybe another fake news story from the far left there. As drones shutter the Denmark airport, drones spotted near runways forced Denmark to temporarily shut down its airports, raising alarms across Europe. So we'll watch that more closely as Russian warplanes are near Alaska airspace. NORAD saying that 2 Russian Tu-95 bombers and 2 Su-35 firefighters entered the Alaskan Air Defense Identification Zone. So something to watch closely as we're roughly 5 weeks from that Russian and American peace summit in Anchorage, Alaska, where President Trump invited the leader of the Russian Federation, Vladimir Putin, for continued peace talks. So some of the breaking news details today as President Trump is expected to sign executive orders in this broadcast. Earlier today as well, meeting with President Erdogan of Turkey to discuss the sale of F-35s and also the ongoing conflict between Russia and Ukraine. They're very close to that as Turkey located right in between Asia and Europe, really the crossroads of those two continents, as their capital of Istanbul once was Constantinople. Lots of history there, not only within the church, but President Trump making a request to President Erdogan regarding the protection of the Greek Orthodox Church, as Christians are truly the most persecuted religion throughout the world. We've seen that on a regular basis, and President Trump addressing that in the ending of conflicts such as Armenia and Azerbaijan, with many of the communities, even within the United States. I remember I first learned about this being out in Los Angeles over a decade ago, about the Armenian Christians being persecuted on a regular basis. As we thank our sponsors here at Right Side Broadcasting Network Live, Monetary Gold, Wealth Security Preservation. Grab your complimentary presidential gold guide today. Call today. Do not delay. Ask how you can eliminate your annual IRA fees for life. 866-617. That is 7994, 617-7994, RSBN4thegold.com. Call immediately to discover how to eliminate that fee, and you get that complimentary presidential gold guide with our 45th and 47th President of the United States, a man of courage, a man of determination, a man who has a lot of bobbleheads that happen to be sitting behind me, different caricatures of things that happen in real life and some more fabled. I don't know if he ever got on the motorcycle, but regardless, Robert Kiyosaki, a friend of his, has advised many with 2 banks failing in 2025 alone to put their retirement funds into gold and silver, tangible metals that have stood the test of time for really the whole of recorded human history over 5,000 years, because against inflation, this is the best bet. There's no question about that. So call now, 888-617-7994. Grab your complimentary presidential gold guide, RSBN forthegold.com. As we approach the 4 o'clock hour on the East Coast and 1 o'clock on the West Coast, you can place those bets with that extra investment with questions like who will win the Nobel Peace Prize, I think it's clear President Trump making the statement that he's not so interested in the award, more as people being saved, millions of lives saved because of the ending of these conflicts around the world. 7 conflicts in 7 months. Will Zelensky meet with Putin before January, bilaterally or multilaterally, trilaterally, in fact, as they have both requested President Trump to be there for those present meetings. Kalshi.com/RSBN. Trade on anything. Trade on the upcoming World Series as the baseball playoffs underway in roughly less than 1 week from now. But I think President Trump definitely a front runner for the Oslo, Norway's grand prize of the Nobel Peace Prize, something that has been given to the likes of Mother Teresa, also another president, Barack Hussein Obama. But the wild thing about that was President Obama actually started increasing drone strikes, including the killing of an American citizen who had no due process nor any trial, although he was fighting for the Taliban. Considered an enemy combatant, surprised he wasn't impeached for that and removed from office for the murder of an American citizen. But this president truly focused on dialogue. If you remember when he entered office, or upon entering office, the then 44th president stated to President-elect Donald Trump that, the next war will be with North Korea. President Trump's rebuking him, saying, don't you have a phone and a pen? Why wouldn't you have called Kim Jong-un? And we know what happened there. The Singapore summit, which led to the meeting and the crossing of the 58th parallel across that demilitarized zone between South Korea and North Korea, between capitalism and communism, freedom and oppression. President Trump unafraid to dialogue with someone who might not have similar opinions. But this man knows how to learn about the opposition. It's why he was such a great businessman. It's why he was able to be one of the top individuals in New York with real estate, with golf, with hospitality, because he actually bothers to be interested in what his opposition thinks. So he knows how to play his cards. Something people can learn from, whether it be in public life or in private business. And it was on full display this week at the United Nations with defending sovereignty and rejecting the siren song of globalism. So much has recentered in focus with the left-wing violence over the course of the last few weeks, from inept Democrat leaders releasing criminals at the judicial level, or from DAs who seek not to prosecute people with the cashless bail. As a result of that, Irina Zarutska will, God willing, have justice as she was stabbed on that Charlotte, North Carolina train. And Vice President J.D. Vance calling out men in America, especially when you become a father. He was stating that his little daughter gets in trouble with a lot more than his sons would, but that every man should defend any woman in the public sphere, especially someone who was helpless on a train by herself. And the North Carolina legislature, a veto-proof legislature, mind you, passing legislation to end cashless bail and to invoke mental health services that are greatly needed, not only in the Tar Heel state, but also throughout this country. And as the vice president has stated many times, he is a huge fan of the Gipper himself. Who isn't? Ronald Reagan led a revolution that changed the scope of this nation culturally and politically. But the removal of the insane asylums was a massive mistake. No administration does it perfectly, although you have a situation right now of a president who is not backing down and growing the tent of the MAGA Republican movement. It's truly become we the people versus a global bureaucracy. And the siren song and three-headed serpent of communism, Islamism, and secular humanist, globalist governance. The antithesis to their perverted ways is the West, is Western civilizations, everything that Charlie Kirk fought for on a daily basis on the college campuses and within the American church. And it's brought together the likes of the warrior Charlie Kirk. His name, you'll hear that tonight on The Voice of Reason. Charlie actually stood for warrior in the Germanic sense, and also Kirk translating to church. He was the warrior of the American church and quickly becoming America's pastor in the likes of people like Billy Graham, who once held those revivals in those stadiums from Yankee Stadium throughout the entire country. Someone who always stated he wanted to be a small-time countryside pastor. And on the campaign trail just 1 year ago, I should post these photos on social media, having the opportunity to visit Mr. and Mrs. Billy Graham and their site in Charlotte, North Carolina, where they're laying at rest in their museum and library that inspired a world with their revivals and their crusades. And Charlie was on that evangelical mission, and his mission will continue to ring throughout this land. That there's no such thing as the leftist narrative of separation of church or state or their perverted view of it, because separation of church and state solely meant that there was no state religion, that you could choose how to worship or not worship at all. Very foundations of this country is religious liberty and freedom of speech. And Ronald Reagan was so right about that. If liberalism ever came to America, or if fascism ever come to America, it would be in the form of liberalism. And we've seen that over the course of the last several decades, and especially within this past year with far-left violence. And I wish that elected Democrats in Washington would recognize that and make an attempt to quiet the rhetoric and to stop with the Nazi labels, which is actually, you can laugh at it because that was National Socialist Party of Germany. That's what it stood for. Conservatism is on the right side of history. But there's skewed historical books out there claiming that it was somehow a conservative movement. Nothing could be further from the truth. It was of the left. Not as far left as communism, but definitely of the left. And we'll continue to expose and share that here on Right Side Broadcasting Network. Thank you to our sponsors here at Right Side Broadcasting Network, angelpace.com. Experience the miracle that is so needed this year as we are now in the fall season. It's cooler temperatures. It might mean some dry skin. And the Vitamin B Miracle Cream, non-GMO, no chemicals. You've seen me use it here on the network. I love this Miracle Cream. I still use it now. There's also the Vitamin C Orange option, also non-GMO, no chemicals. The Angel Paste Miracle Cream. Experience the miracle that is out of Spring, Texas. They are Christians, they hire veterans, and they know a thing or two about skincare and beauty right on the Gulf of America. A wonderful place to live. Spring, Texas, Lone Star State. Experience the miracle that is angelpaste.com. Thank you for your sponsorship on the right side of history. There's also covepure.com/RSBN. Get $200 off your go-to reverse osmosis system. So you have it, look, it's just like a coffee maker that you probably have at home, on your kitchen counter, in the den, perhaps in the man cave, that RO system that is better than the rest. I'll tell you why. It's the Clearwater technology. 99.9% of impurities being removed from this machine, whether it's fluoride, agricultural runoff, to pesticides, all the way to hormone destroying birth control pills. Now you might ask, how would that happen? Well, when people take their antibiotics to birth control to any pills that are taken orally, it does not necessarily get absorbed completely into the system. That has to have runoff and flush down the toilet, and therefore the water treatment facilities don't catch everything. So if you're drinking straight from the tap, you could get that into your system, but not with the Clearwater technology that Cove Pure provides. In addition to that, children who drink out of the tap actually lose more than 2 points in their IQ, according to a recent scientific study by doctors at JAMA Pediatrics. So protect what matters most, drink pure, live pure, and listen to the warnings of people who have dedicated their lives to clean air and clean water, like Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who took on the big corporations and big government over the years. And how many different outlets called him a wackadoodle for the claims of fluoride in the water? It's been proven true now. So get this covepure.com/RSBN, the best in the reverse osmosis technology with their clear water technology. Scan the QR code now, covepure.com/RSBN, $200 off. You can see there all the different categories for hot, warm, or even cold water to start your day or to get that tea going or even your coffee. As President Trump to sign executive orders very soon, live there from the White House at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. On roughly an overcast day, it was raining earlier in Washington, D.C. It's been on and off here in the loveliest village on the plains, our home studios in Auburn, Alabama. Let's take a quick commercial break for sponsors. We'll be right back with you here at Right Side Broadcasting Network.
Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network, your trusted conservative news outlet. At RSBN, we deliver the truth when the mainstream media falls short. Since 2015, we've proudly broadcasted every single one of President Trump's iconic MAGA rallies, bringing you the excitement and energy live before anyone else. By watching RSBN, you get an unfiltered front row view of the action on the ground. We interview the crowds to give a voice to millions of Americans just like you. We show you President Trump's speeches in their entirety, free from interruptions and censorship. We cover the stories that matter to you with the integrity and passion you deserve. Thank you for choosing RSBN as your home for America First News. Together, we stand strong, united, and informed. So join us and be part of the right side of history.
Hey y'all, it's Silk from the Diamond and Silk Chit Chat live show. Look, don't forget to check me out right here on RSBN Network. Be sure to watch the show on Right Side Broadcasting Network, and I want you to support Right Side Broadcasting Network. Yes, it's imperative that you do so, okay? I look to see y'all soon. Bye-bye.
allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. You can scan that QR code now, RSBN10. That is the code, easy to remember, for 10% off. This is ivermectin, hydrochloroquine, antibiotics that will save you and yours from bacterial and viral infections, NAD+, and much, much more. 200 essential medications and emergency medical kits, the meds you trust delivered to your door. Now, President Trump in the last week has also protected American jobs with the suspension of entry of certain alien non-immigrant workers. Yesterday, President Trump was able to sign a proclamation to restrict the entry into the United States of certain H-1B aliens as non-migrant workers, requiring a $100,000 payment to accompany or supplement H-1B petitions for new applications to curb abuses that displace U.S. workers and undermine national security. The proclamation restricts entry for aliens as non-immigrants to perform services in specialty occupations relating to the H-1B visa program unless their petition is accompanied by a $100,000 payment. It directs the Secretary of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem, to restrict approvals for petitions from aliens that are currently outside of the United States and that are not accompanied by the payment, and allows case-by-case exemptions if in the national interest. Now, the proclamation requires employers to retain documentation of payment remittance, with the Secretary of State verifying payment during the petition process and the Departments of State and Homeland Security denying entry for non-payment for the relevant aliens and taking over relevant steps needed to implement the proclamation. Now, it requires the Departments of Labor and Homeland Security to issue joint guidance and verification enforcement, audits, and penalties. The proclamation directs the Secretary of Labor to the initiative rulemaking to revise the prevailing wage levels for the H-1B program and direct the Secretary of Homeland Security to initiate rulemaking to prioritize high-skilled, high-paid H-1B workers. Now, combating the H-1B abuses, American workers are being replaced with lower-paid foreign labor, creating an economic and national security threat to the nation. The share of IT workers with H-1B visas has risen from 32% in FY 2003 to over 65% in recent years, and unemployment among recent computer science graduates have reached 6.1% and 7.5% for computer engineering graduates, more than double the rates for biology or art history majors. So we dive into those continued numbers and facts. Make sure to go to 47knife.com for the 3 bundle of your Patriot Trump knives. Get those right now. The Trump Combat Knife for 30% off. Code RSBN30. RSBN30. Scan the QR code now to get these limited edition knives. They will be gone. When I got mine, it went very quick. They go like hotcakes, and they are quite fantastic. Visit 47knife.com to get yours. Trump Combat Knife going in a 3-pack today. Also, allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN, the flu season prep. Tamiflu to antibiotics, ivermectin, hydrochloroquine, and 200 life-saving medications, including NAD+, to methylene blue, all set to take care of you with biohacking products and also weight loss programs. Scan the QR code now. It's RSBN10, RSBN10 for 10% off. Allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. You can also take these on the road with you. They have emergency medical kits. There's no red tape, no bureaucracy, no insurance, no hassle. Simply doctors and pharmacists on the other end that are patriots and care about your future health. Allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. Now, diving back into those numbers, the number of foreign STEM workers in the United States has more than doubled between 2000 and 2019, while overall STEM employment only increased 44.5% during that time. American companies are laying off their American technology workers and seemingly replacing them with H-1B workers. One company was approved for 5,189 H-1B workers in FY 2025, while laying off roughly 16,000 United States employees this past year. Another company was approved for 1,698 H-1B visas for workers in FY 2025, yet it announced laying off 2,400 U.S. workers in Oregon in July. There's also a third company reducing its U.S. workforce by 27,000 since 2022, while receiving 25,075 H-1B approvals. Yet another company reporting on a cut of 1,000 American jobs in February, despite recovering 1,137 H-1B approvals for FY 2025. So American IT workers have been reportedly forced to train their foreign replacements. Imagine this, you're going to be terminated and then you're replacing, that's being replaced by foreign workers, and you have to then train those who are taking your job. That just befuddles me. So they're training their foreign replacements under the non-disclosure agreements and the H-1B program, creating disincentives for future American workers to choose STEM careers, which threatens our national security. So President Trump imposing higher costs on companies seeking to use the H-1B program in order to address the abuse of the program, stop the undercutting of wages, and protecting our national security. So all in all, this prioritizes the protection of the American worker. Voters gave President Trump a resounding mandate to put American workers first, and he has worked every day to deliver on that commitment. President Trump aggressively and successfully negotiating new trade deals to bring manufacturing jobs back home and attract new U.S. investments, all while President Trump is using tariffs. Oh my gosh, the tariffs, the legacy media says, do not work, but definitely work through 1893 and until we reach the progressive movement starting in 1913 with the stupid federal income tax. We had so much money in this country, we didn't know what to do with it. That's why we set up those blue ribbon commissions. When you see those schools that are awarded, whether private, public, or however they're funded, with the blue ribbon committee schools. We can get back to that again with great programs like the revised H-1B programs. President Trump aggressively and successfully negotiating new trade deals to bring manufacturing jobs back home and attract new investments in the United States. Now, President Trump also using those tariffs as a strategic tool to build American manufacturing, secure our supply chains, and protect United States national security. President Trump has implemented several Section 232 tariffs to protect manufacturing that has been undermined by unfair trade practices and global excess capacity, all while Bill Clinton and George W. Bush and Barack Hussein Obama and the Auto Pen sought to bankrupt Detroit while bankrolling Beijing. It was roughly 5 short months ago, I can't believe it's been 5 months already, when we were celebrating 100 days in Warren Township, Michigan, with the revitalization of this country and America's workforce, especially our United Auto Workers. I can't believe how pro-private union I've become as a result of my own journey in the American populist movement, because it's common sense. It was the big tent that Ronald Reagan created, and Donald Trump has unfolded tenfold in this process, as we expect him to sign executive orders soon. Stick with us here at Right Side Broadcasting Network to catch that live, the president signing that in the West Wing today. Now, since President Trump returned to office, all employment gains have gone to American-born workers, unlike last year during the same period under President Auto Pen, when all employment gains went to foreign-born workers. The Trump administration issued a new guidance to ensure illegal aliens are not allowed access to federal workforce development resources and related grants protecting job trainings for American workers. So its promises made, its promises kept, it's common sense. It is something that the neoliberals and the neocons were not able to deliver on. Although they would say they were for the middle class, they abandoned those principles and decided to bankrupt all of the Midwest and not only the city of broad shoulders, what's happening there, my God, from the terrible Democrat leadership and the violence that's in the city of Chicago. But I had the unique privilege during my very first role with Turning Point USA, almost a decade ago now, to travel in the territory of Illinois, Indiana, Michigan, and Wisconsin, and to see these small towns revitalized by a populist movement in MAGA, very welcome in this day and age. Mr. Producer, if I'm not mistaken, let's toss there to the White House for President Trump.
Hello, everybody. Hello. Well, thank you very much. We've had some really good talks today on Gaza with both the Middle East representatives and kings and all of the top leaders in the Middle East. And we had also a very good conversation with Bibi Netanyahu, trying to get the hostages back, and we're trying to get the end of the Gaza situation. It's really bad, very bad. And we think it could happen. Maybe it could happen pretty soon. We want the hostages back. We want the bodies back. And we want to have peace in that region. So we had some very good talks. As you know, I had President Erdogan here of Turkey, and we had a great meeting today. I think we had a meeting that was very conclusive in so many different things that we wanted, things that he wanted, and that was good. We'll be announcing that sometime later, and he'll be making an announcement too. But we had a great meeting with Turkey and their very respected president, and spent time. We had lunch, and we had a lot of good discussions. So those two things, and we have some executive orders today to sign that are very important for the country. And we'll start off with one that's a proclamation. And yes, want to do that, Will?
Yes, sir. So today is Gold Star Mothers and Families Day. This is an annual proclamation. This is to commemorate the fallen, those who have died for all of our freedoms and for our country, and for their families who have suffered such grievous losses. But this is a proclamation commemorating Gold Star Mothers and Gold Star Families.
Yeah, and they're great people, incredible people. What they've had to go through. Very few people could have gone through this kind of thing. Gold star. Okay, thank you very much. I'll put it over here, Steve.
Next, executive order on TikTok. From the first days of your administration, you've charged a team from your administration, led by Vice President Vance, with ensuring that we can preserve TikTok as a platform for the 170 million Americans who use it, while ensuring that their data is properly protected as required by law. With this executive order, you will be effectively bringing into effect the agreement that will save TikTok and ensure that it can operate safely and securely.
So this is interesting because I had a very good talk with President Xi, a lot of respect for him. Hopefully he has a lot of respect for me too. And we talked about TikTok and other things, but we talked about TikTok, and he gave us the go-ahead. You know, it's run by American investors and American companies, great ones, great investors, the biggest. You don't get bigger, I don't imagine. And maybe I'll have JD. JD was very much involved and in charge of it. And maybe I'll have you say a few words, report back. And the points of the deal, I think, are great for our country. So, JD, do you want to give it a little talk, please?
Yes, sir. Yeah. So thank you, sir, for your leadership and for your help. We really couldn't have done this without the president actually ushering this deal over the finish line. There was some resistance on the Chinese side, but the fundamental thing that we wanted to accomplish is that we wanted to keep TikTok operating, but we also wanted to make sure that we protected Americans' data privacy as required by law, both because it's the right thing to do, but also because it's a legal requirement of the law that was passed last year by Congress. So we think that we were able to do that. Of course, we're going to keep on working at it, but this deal really does mean that Americans can use TikTok, but actually use it with more confidence than they had in the past, because their data is going to be secure and it's not going to be used as a propaganda weapon against our fellow citizens. We're very excited about it. We appreciate the cooperation of everybody involved, and it's a big day.
And I think I can say that especially the young people, they really wanted this to happen. They did not want to have TikTok close. And I got, a little used to TikTok. I used it myself during the campaign, and it was very successful because you know how I did with the young voter. And Charlie helped me a lot too. And he said to me, you should go on TikTok. And it actually had, because we got record votes with the young voter, as you know, for the election. So I was a little bit prejudiced in that way toward TikTok. It was very good and very meaningful. But we have American investors taking it over, running it, highly sophisticated, including Larry Ellison. And Oracle, I guess, is going to play a very big role in terms of security, safety, and everything else. So we have very good controls. And literally, I would get a call from friends of mine who were fathers of young people saying, could you do me a favor? Could you get it approved, please? My son is driving me crazy. So we're getting it done, and they have a big audience, and we have great American investors. And here's your final copy. TikTok. Maybe if you want, we could take a couple of questions on TikTok, and then we're going to get onto something completely different. Okay? Yeah.
Mr. President,
Jeff?
Mr. Vice President, you mentioned that China was resistant. Can you describe where China is now? Are they fully on board with this?
They're on board. Yeah. I spoke with President Xi. We had a good talk. I told him what we were doing, and he said, go ahead with it.
On the algorithm, it's still being leased coming from China. Are you satisfied that there's no security concerns?
Yeah. The biggest reason is that it's owned by Americans, and very sophisticated Americans, and people that love the country, and very smart. So they don't want anything like that to happen. Yes, please.
Thank you. Is there any operational relationship with Chinese entities or staff to execute the deal?
With who?
With the Chinese.
I don't think so. Not that I know. No, this is going to be American operated all the way. And great respect for President Xi, and I very much appreciate that he approved the deal, because to get it done properly, we really needed the support of China and the approval of China. Yes, ma'am.
Mr. President, now that Americans will have operational control, do you want to see the algorithm suggest more MAGA-related content prioritized?
I always like MAGA-related. If I could, I'd make it 100% MAGA-related. It's actually a good question, but I would, yeah, if I could make it 100% MAGA, I would, but it's not going to work out that way, unfortunately. No, everyone's going to be treated fairly. every group, every philosophy, every policy will be treated very fairly. Thank you.
Mr. President, do you know the valuation? Do you know the American company is going to be valued in the billions?
Well, they valued it very highly. They're paying a big number. Do you want to talk, Scott? Do you want to say something about value?
Well, I'll let the Vice President, and then I can follow up.
And you'll say something.
Sure. Well, first of all, I would say all credit goes to the Secretary of the Treasury. Couldn't have got it done without Scott. Also couldn't have got it done without Sean Cooksey on my team, so thanks to them. The company will be valued around $14 billion. We actually think this is a good deal for investors, but ultimately the investors are going to make the determination about what they want to invest in and what they think is a proper value. The most important thing, it does protect Americans' data security. It ensures TikTok is still accessible. And on this question of the algorithm, which we've heard this a lot, what this deal ensures is that the American entity and the American investors will actually control the algorithm. We don't want this used as a propaganda tool by any foreign government. We want to make sure that our people actually make these decisions based on what's good for their business as opposed to what's good for another government's propaganda arm. So that's what we've done with this deal. I think it's very good for the American people, and this. We actually want everybody to access this, whether they're MAGA or not. We just want it to be fair. We want it to be fair to everybody, and we think that's what's going to happen with this new arrangement.
Well, the U.S. government...
And just to follow up on the Vice President, there were two pieces to the transaction. The Vice President's office has worked since the spring for the commercial transaction between the investor groups, and then Treasury and a group including the Vice President's office were in Madrid 2 weeks ago to negotiate with the Chinese, and it was a result of President Trump's close relationship with Party Chair Xi that we were able to get this across the line. We created a framework for Party Chair Xi to agree, and then on the leaders' call, Xi and President Trump discussed the final arrangement. So it was 1-2. And that was the final piece.
Will the U.S. government get any kind of annual payment as a result of this deal?
Taxes. It's going to make money, and we're going to get a lot of money in taxes. And you know, China wanted to see this go. This is a great legacy for China, too. And I thought President Xi was great in terms of his approval. We probably could have done it a different way, but it wouldn't have been the same. It wouldn't have been the same security at all, but I appreciated that he approved it.
So nothing aside from taxes, there's no part of the deal that is like a payment to the U.S. government?
Well, we're going to be announcing different things, but the U.S. comes out great. And I think China comes out great because they're going to have a very important legacy. And they have many other deals. You know, they have deals with us, and they have deals in here in this country. And, you know, they want to be treated fairly also.
So, Mr. President and Mr. Vice President, the U.S. company could change the algorithm to push different content? Is that...
The U.S. company will have control over how the algorithm pushes content to users, and that was a very important part of it. We thought it was necessary for the national security element of the law. We also just think it's important to protect American users. Again, we want users to use this platform the way they want to. We want the business to make decisions about content based on the interests of the business and based on the interests of the users, and that's what we think will happen with this new arrangement.
And they're paying a lot of money, and I think hopefully it's going to be a great deal. They're very sophisticated people. You'll see a list. Have you seen a list yet of the people? Well, you've been reading about it. It's. I know Michael Dell's involved, and Rupert Murdoch's involved, and a lot of. And let's see, we have probably 4 or 5 absolutely world-class investors that love the country, and they made a lot of money with the country, and. Many of them are in a somewhat related business, so it works out pretty well. And they're going to be very careful about all of these questions that you've been asking.
Who else beyond Dell and Murdoch?
Well, it's a blue chip group of investors, and we'll be announcing more about who exactly is involved in the deal in the days to come.
Oracle's playing a very big part.
That's right, sir.
And Oracle really understands this. And I think they're actually, they've been involved for quite a while running it for the people, the previous people. And so it's really, I think it's going to be very well protected. Very, very prestigious deal, actually.
On that point, Mr. President, as the President said, Oracle has actually had a role in housing the data for a long time. ByteDance organization in China. So Oracle had a pretty interesting perspective on what was necessary to actually create true data privacy protections for Americans. They were a very important part of getting this thing done.
Mr. President, you told us a couple of weeks ago you thought that the security concerns were overrated, but were there legitimate concerns when it comes to safety?
From my standpoint, no, because the people that own it are, they're not China-centric, they're USA-centric, and they're very smart people. I guess you could say it about everything. Everything is what's secure nowadays. Things that you think are totally secure turn out to not to be. But I think in this case, it's going to be as secure as you can be because of the ownership and the people. And they have a big investment. It's to their advantage to make sure it's good and safe. Yeah. Anybody else? Do you have a question? No, behind you.
Well, I just want to say, do you think this move and getting this deal done, Mr. President, do you think this honors the legacy like Charlie Kirk? He specifically pushed you to get involved with TikTok in your campaign, helped you win young voters. Do you think this deal honors him?
Well, I think it's a good thing. It's a good sign. We're doing very well, as you know, with the trade deals. We're doing very well with China, and a lot of them were never treated properly. We were for 4 years, actually, but we were never treated very properly by other countries, and we're doing well. We've never done this well. We have, because of the tariffs that are coming in, the deals that are being made, $950 billion in one case. $950 billion, where previously they paid nothing. We have, as you know, in Japan, it's $550 billion. South Korea is $350 billion. That's up front. And one of the things I can say, I announced it lightly before, but we're taking in tremendous amounts of money with tariffs. We've never seen anything like it. No country's ever seen anything like it. I'm going to devote a little bit of that money, a little bit of the tariff money to our farmers. Our farmers have been incredible. They're the ones that let us survive and eat and enjoy our lives, right? Eat too much, maybe in some cases, like mine. But I will tell you, we're going to take some of the tariff money, relatively small amount, but a lot for the farmers. And we're going to help the farmers out a little bit, because during this transition period, a period where we're taking in incredible amounts of money, we'll have a little bit of a shortfall with the farmers until the tariffs kick in, because they haven't kicked in for the farmers yet. And I decided before, and I spoke to all of the people here, that I want to make a contribution out of the tariff money, a small percentage of it, but it's a lot for the farmers. It'll make the farmers feel very good, just help them through the transition. And ultimately, they're going to be making a fortune. They will be one of the top in the whole world in terms of percentage gotten from the tariffs we're taking in. But we have so much coming in that, in fact, just get the word out to the farmer, because they'll be struggling until the transition is complete. Then after that, they're going to do, I think, better than they've ever done before. Last time I said, get yourself a larger tractor and more land. And that was when they were doing very poorly, and they ended up doing that, and they did very well. That was with the deal we made with China. Unfortunately, Biden forgot about the deal, and he never enforced. I enforced it till the end, and China was very honorable. But when Biden came in, he didn't enforce it. So when you don't enforce a deal, they don't do it. So it's terrible. Biden was very bad to the farmers of our country. So we're going to be doing that. It's an honor to do it, too. Brian, did you have a question?
Yeah, I'm just going to say, what's your message to the millions of small businesses here in the U.S. that really rely on TikTok to reach their end user and to market their service and their products?
Well, thank you for that question, because honestly, we were getting hit up. They use it for virtual advertising, and they pay very little for it and nothing for it. And small businesses have become very successful because of TikTok. And we didn't think of that, when everyone's saying, oh, TikTok and this and that. But over the last 6 months, I was called by so many people saying they're going to go out of business if they can, because they use it virtually as a advertising tool. And without it, they wouldn't have anything. They wouldn't be able to get the word out about their good product or whatever it is they're selling. So it's a very important thing for small business. It's another reason I wanted to do the deal so badly. So let's go to another subject now, if we might, okay? And Will,
Can I
please.
ask you about farmers? About the farmers?
Yes, go ahead.
What does that look like? Is that going to be direct checks to farmers, or is it going to be
Well, we
taxes?
haven't decided that. We'll be dealing with Brooke later, and the Secretary of Agriculture, and we'll figure out how to get money to the farmers. And again, this comes out of the large amount, hundreds of billions of dollars of tariff money that's pouring into the country. The tariffs, remember when I said a long time ago, I said it's the greatest word, it's my favorite word in the world. Then I had to say, I was forced to say other things, and of course, rightfully so. Love, family, religion. So I think I put tariff number 5. I was forced because the fake news did a big number on me. It's one of those little, but let's say it's my 5th favorite word, the word tariff. But it's making our country very rich. And when our country is rich, I'm able to help the farmers, and I'm able to help even other countries that are in trouble, you know. But we're able to help people that are in trouble. Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security, it's all a tremendous amount. And I heard numbers coming in today, Scott, where the numbers were very high, right?
The economic numbers were off the charts, sir.
Unfortunately, right? Because this is the only country in the world where you announce great numbers and the stock market goes down. Because when you announce great numbers, they immediately want to take that success away by raising the interest rates. Why can't you announce great numbers and let them lower the interest rate so you can make numbers? This is the only they announced. I don't know if you heard. Could you just tell them what the number was? And how
it was 3.88% growth, the biggest in years. And the important thing is the president says this is going to be non-inflationary growth, just like it was in his first term. So strong growth, low inflation, real wage gains. And to the question on small business optimism under President Trump last week hit a multi-year high. So small businesses, Main Street is back under President Trump.
But isn't it crazy? So I saw the market was down a little bit today. I mean, in all fairness, I don't feel guilty because we've set every record you can imagine. But I say, oh, the numbers must be good. Meaning the growth numbers are phenomenal. And again, this is during, but a little bit of the heavy, the really success and the money pouring into our country through the tariffs. And I just say, why can't we have great numbers and lower the interest rates so we have even greater numbers? So people were saying, oh, the numbers are so good, they're going to have to raise interest rates. That doesn't have to happen. And there's no inflation. We have really, the only thing we have is great success. We're having unbelievable success. So the numbers are much higher than anticipated, except for by me and Scott and some of the other people. And they'll get a lot higher than that, too. But I don't want to, every time we have good numbers, say, let's take all the juice out by raising interest rates. It's so backwards. It's so backwards.
Well, Mr. President, they don't appreciate the importance of the third leg of your stool, because trade, taxes, and deregulation allows for significant upside growth without inflation. So eventually the people at the Fed will be able to focus on this like Alan Greenspan did in the 90s. You can have strong growth and low inflation, and I think we can get the stock market up, Wall Street, Main Street, both doing well.
And we want low interest rates. There's no reason that every time we announce these record numbers, these numbers are way above projections by, all the great geniuses out there. And I knew this was going to happen. So they had 71 different people, and only 2 got it right. Me and another gentleman from, I think, my wonderful Wharton School of Finance, actually. So anyway, but I really want you to look at that. Every time we have good numbers, they say this is a good time because they're guarding against inflation that may happen in 2 years from now. We have to change our thinking. We should be rewarded for good numbers, not penalized.
So, Mr. President, is that 3.8? Is that the start of a 3% growth for the entire year?
The number was projected at 2, because we're in a little bit of a transition period, but that transition period's ending faster than we thought on tariffs. The money coming in is much greater than people thought, and there's no inflation, essentially. There's no inflation. We just went through the worst inflation in the history of our country under Sleepy Joe Biden. He was sleeping, and the inflation was really bad, worst ever. They say 48 years, I'll take that too, but I think it was probably the worst inflation we ever had because of spending and energy going through the roof and everything else. By the way, energy is way down. And you're going to really be impressed when you hear what happened today with President Erdogan of Turkey. I think it's great for both countries. I think it's great. We have great relationships with a lot of countries. And you may be even more happy when you find out, because we spoke with Bibi Netanyahu today, and we spoke to all the leaders in the Middle East, who are great people, and we're getting pretty close to having a deal on Gaza, and maybe even peace, which would be the first time in about, 2,000 years, I think? In the region, I'd say the first in, Steve, what would you say, first in 2,000 years, or maybe 1,000?
2 millennium.
It's a long time. Yeah, go ahead.
Did Erdogan agree to stop buying Russian oil? Did he?
I don't want to say that, but if I want him to, he will. Yeah.
But he didn't make that assurance.
Well, I didn't say okay, you stop, but I believe you. I believe he will stop it. Yeah.
Did you make a deal?
You know why? Because he can buy from a lot of other people. He can buy from a lot of other people. You know who really can't is Hungary. Hungary's got, they're landlocked, and they don't have a nice ocean where ships can sail in from all over the world. They have one pipeline coming. Because I spoke with, he's a great guy, he's a great friend of mine, but that's a harder one for them. And Slovakia too. They're sort of married to one pipeline. So I just don't want to have people go blaming them when we spoke to them at length today, and it seems like that for them it's a little. But that's not. Turkey has a lot of options. He's a great president, a very smart man, and he's going to take. He's going to do what's right. But we had a very good conversation having to do with the purchase of military equipment, etc. Any other questions?
Would you make a deal on F-35s, Mr. President?
I will be able to easily if I want. So we may do that, yeah.
But not yet.
Well, it depends. He's going to do something for us, yeah. Please.
Is the U.S. going to have sanctions on Turkey?
Can I ask you, we're a few days away.
By the way, here we go with this guy. Go ahead, let's go. Let's hear the question.
We're a few days away from the end of the fiscal year and a potential shutdown.
Right.
Is there going to be a government shutdown?
Could be, yeah, because the Democrats are crazed. They don't know what they're doing. They want to have the border opened up so that criminals can pour in. We're doing unbelievable borders closed and people are coming into our country legally. They continue to want to have men and women sports. They continue to want to have transgender for everyone. They want to raise everybody's taxes at a number that's not sustainable. It's the only time in the world I've ever seen a party that wants to raise taxes. I grew up in a family where I'd watch politics, and I always liked it from the time I was very young, but I'd always see politicians say, we will lower your taxes. These guys, they campaign on raising your taxes, but they want to raise taxes very substantially.
The one thing they're concerned about, look, Republicans have total control of Washington. You guys have control of the House, the Senate, there's you.
Well, when you say control, so we need 60 votes for this, and we have 53 Republicans, so we need 7 Democrats.
And those 7 are asking for an extension of a tax credit on people who get the Affordable Care Act and some other government-backed health care. So are you willing to negotiate on
what
that
they're
issue?
really asking for is they want to pay for illegal aliens that have come into our country by the millions and get onto the rolls, and they want to pay. And our people don't want to do that. Our people are taxed enough. We just approved the largest tax decrease ever in the history of our country, including the extension of the previous Trump tax cuts. The tax cuts that we just approved, they want to use those tax cuts to give the money to illegal aliens, people that came into our country illegally and that are leaving the country.
So
there's been a self-deportation because of what we've been doing that's been incredible. Okay, yeah, please.
Secretary Hexer is inviting military leaders from all around the country on Tuesday. Will you also be there?
From all around the country to what?
He's inviting the generals and admirals to Virginia for a big meeting. They're not sure why.
Well, I know. I love it. I think it's great. Let them be friendly. Let them be friendly with the generals and admirals from all over the world. Why? Is there something? No, but is there something wrong with it?
And what is it about? Will you be there personally as well? And what is it about?
Well, I'll be there if they want me, but why is that such a big deal? The fact that we're getting along with the generals and admirals from all. Remember, I'm the president of peace. It's good to get along. It's good. You act like this is a bad thing. Isn't it nice that people are coming from all over the world to be with us?
It's not particularly unusual that generals who report to the Secretary of War and then to the President of the United States are coming to speak with the Secretary of War. It's actually not unusual at all, and I think it's odd that you guys have made it into such a big story.
Is it a big story? I mean, is it? I mean,
I don't think it is, sir.
I would think it's no, but isn't it a good story? I mean, we're respected from all over the world as a military force. I rebuilt the military during my first term, even though we gave a chunk of it away to Afghanistan. But we're talking Afghanistan too, by the way, about Bagram and about that. But that's a very small amount compared to what we rebuilt it by. But I rebuilt the military, and we're very respected. We have the strongest military anywhere in the world without question. We have the greatest equipment in the world. We're selling the equipment to other countries. And a lot of generals want to be here, and they want to look at they're also going to be touring equipment sites. They're going to be talking about the newest weapons, et cetera, et cetera. But I think it's great when generals and top people want to come to the United States to be with our now called Secretary of War. Does everybody like the name? I do.
You said something
Yeah,
really
please.
interesting this week about Ukraine, that you thought Ukraine could get back all the territory that Russia had taken.
Yeah, they have a shot at it because Russia.
What prompted you to change your thoughts on
Well,
that?
because I've been watching the way what Russia's been doing. I'm very dissatisfied with what Russia's doing and what President Putin is doing. I haven't liked it at all. He's killing people for no reason whatsoever, and they are doing very poorly. They have put it all out on the line. Their economy is going to hell. They're bombing the hell out of everything, and they're picking up very little territory, if any. In fact, they're losing some territory. So I think it's been very bad for the reputation of Russia. This war should have been over. If this were our war, we would have had it over in 1 week.
But you didn't use
And they're getting into fourth year, Jeff. They're getting into the fourth year now. 4 years of fighting, and you see what they've taken. In the last month, they've taken very little, and you've been reporting on all the bombing, all the drones all over the place, 900 drones coming into certain areas like Kiev in one night. And with all of that work, they've taken over very little. So now I'm very disappointed in President Putin. I thought I solved 7 wars. In fact, we have a great leader coming. We have the Prime Minister of Pakistan coming. The Field Marshal, Pakistan, Field Marshal is a very great guy, and so is the Prime Minister, both. And they're coming, and they may be in this room right now. I don't know, because we're late. And I said maybe they'd like to join they actually may be somewhere in the beautiful Oval Office. Yeah, please, behind you.
Quickly on Gaza, did you promise leaders this week that you would not allow Israel to annex the West Bank? And is that something that you
I will not allow Israel to annex the West Bank. No, I will not allow it. It's not going to happen.
Netanyahu about this directly?
Yeah, but I'm not going to allow it. Whether I spoke to him or not, I did. But I'm not allowing Israel to annex the West Bank. There's been enough. It's time to stop now, okay? Yes, please.
Jasmine Crockett recently.
Jasmine Crockett. Remember what I said? Is she a relation to the late, great Davy Crockett? I don't think so. Jasmine Crockett, let me tell you, before you even ask, she's a very low IQ person. I mean, if we ever had to pass an aptitude test, that's the one should take one, because she shouldn't even be in the crowd. So I have no idea what you're going to, but I don't think we should waste our time. This is a low IQ person who I can't even believe is a congressperson, between her and Ilman Omar and the group. I met the head of Somalia. Did you know that? And I suggested that maybe he'd like to take her back, and he didn't want her. He said, "I don't want her." Okay, what else? Go ahead. Let's hear what Crockett said. Go ahead.
She compared ICE raids to slave patrol. I want to ask you.
To slave?
To slave patrol. I want to ask you if you think that there should be consequences for members of Congress who make these types of comparisons or use this as a
Well, I think she's gone over the line, and I think a lot of the people. Look, the Democrats have become radical left lunatics. They have policies that nobody's going to buy. And, I see what's going on in New York. We're going to have perhaps a communist mayor, because it's split up. If the people would get together and have one candidate, they'd have, I think, a pretty good chance. But it looks like maybe they're not going to do that. But we're going to end up with a communist mayor. It's not even believable, my beautiful New York. When I left New York to become president, it was a great place. But it was the beginning of bad things, because we had de Blasio had just started as mayor, and I said, this guy's a real nut job. Went to Harvard to teach management. Can you believe it? He went to Harvard to teach city management along with the mayor of Chicago, who went to Harvard to teach. The two of them are teaching how to manage a city into manage it into hell is what they do. But that was the beginning, and now we're going to go a step further. Now we're going with the communists. Can I be honest? I think it's the greatest thing to ever happen to the Republican Party. I really do. I think if a communist takes over New York City, I think that's a gift to the Republican Party. It's New York, but it's a gift. And New York will recover because sometimes you need a shock like that to straighten you out. But it's politically, it's probably a very good thing.
Mr. President, can I ask you about immigration, crime, and the World Cup? Actually, so
That's a lot of.
You have a number of cities that are pushing back against your immigration deportation move, as well as your crime initiatives. Some of those cities.
I don't think they're very much.
But
pushing
some of those
back.
cities have World Cup games.
Yeah.
Seattle, San Francisco.
They're going to be very. They're going to be very secure.
But could those games move if they don't cooperate with your crime push?
Well, that's an interesting. I guess, but we're going to make sure they're safe. They're run by radical left lunatics and that don't know what they're doing. Look at Washington, D.C. I just in Washington, D.C. You, Jeff, will not be mugged walking down the street. You can walk down the street with your family. You can walk down your street with your wife, your daughter, your son, and you're not going to be. We took out 1,700 career criminals that we're not allowing back. And we have this city in great shape. There was a time when not long ago, when every single week you'd have at least one murder. And look what's happening with Washington. It's safe. I went to dinner in Washington just to prove a point. I gave a press conference in the middle of a street. I wouldn't say Secret Service was thrilled, but I did it, and here I am. Look, Washington, D.C. is such a great example of what can be done. We did it in 12 days. We made it very safe in 12 days, and now it's much safer than that. One other thing, I drove around Washington over the weekend, and I said, look at the difference. The grass looked great. Everything looked great. We had a lot of our National Guard, and we didn't ask them to do it. They did it themselves. They're proud. They're great. And they were picking up paper. They were cleaning. The place looked really beautiful. So we have a great Washington, D.C. We, as you probably know, we're going into Memphis, and we're going into some other cities, and very soon we're going to go into Chicago. It will be safe for the World Cup. If I think it isn't safe, we'll move it into a different city. Absolutely, we'll take the world. If I think it's not, it's actually a very fair question. If I think it's not safe, we're going to move it out of that city. If, like the governor of Illinois, who is, look, between last week and the week before, 11 murders, and 38 people were shot. Then he gets up and he says, this is a very safe. And then he says crime is better. The reason crime is better is because Cash put about 5 months of FBI people there to get ready for when we go in, and they've lowered it a little bit, like 20, 25%, which isn't good enough, but it's a good start. But that was only put there because they're preparing for us to go in. And they've done, by the way, they've done a good job. So then Pritzker gets up, we've lowered crime 25. It's because the FBI was there. So, no, if any city we think is going to be even a little bit dangerous for the World Cup or for the Olympics, where they have Olympic overthrow, right? But for the World Cup in particular, because they're playing in so many cities, we won't allow it to go to, we'll move it around a little bit. But I hope that's not going to happen, yeah.
Mr. President, Director Patel this morning indicated that the shooter in Dallas had been using an app. Does your administration have any plans to take down those apps or get them removed?
Well, I can't tell you about that, but it tells you when they want to wear masks or they want to hide a little bit, why that's so important. But these are great patriots, the ICE, and what a tough job they have. What an unbelievably tough job they have. And think of it, what are they doing? They're taking hardcore criminals out of our country and putting them back. These were largely criminals that were given to us by Joe Biden and his group of radical maniacs that surrounded this desk, just like these people surround the desk now, but they're not maniacs, they're very solid people.
Thank you, sir.
I'm glad I prefaced it. But they're great. We have a great cabinet. We have great people. And he didn't have great people. He had terrible people. Look at Afghanistan. Look at the people he had running our military. That could happen. The most embarrassing day in the history of our country was Afghanistan. And 13 young people died. They don't ever talk about the 38 that were horribly wounded with legs and arms and everything else, really horribly wounded. So the country's respected like it's probably almost never been respected before. I think we're respected at a level, and a year ago it was a dead country. We had a dead country a year ago. This country was dying. It was really in bad shape. Let's talk about the next subject, can we?
One of the most powerful deterrents we have to violent crime is the death penalty. As you said, your administration has taken bold, decisive steps to ensure that Washington, D.C. is once again a safe and secure city for its residents and all who visit. This is a presidential memorandum that directs your Attorney General and your U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia, Judge Jeanine Pirro, to fully implement the death penalty here in Washington, D.C., where the evidence and facts of a case indicate that the death penalty should be used.
Okay. Everybody understand? Death penalty in Washington. You kill somebody, or if you kill a police officer, law enforcement officer, death penalty. So again, it's way down. I mean, we have had week after week after week where we haven't had a murder. I said that the other day in front of the president of Poland. The press was here, and I said, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to announce that Washington, D.C. has not had a death in 4 weeks, a murder. And he looked at me and goes, is that good or bad? You know, he said, what kind of a place is this? But it's true for years. I mean, every week, essentially, somebody got killed or more than one. And this is a very safe city right now. We don't play games. And, you know, it's interesting. We took these careers out, career criminals. They call them careers. They left the word criminal out. But we took the careers out of here. And they're now brought back to their homes, or they're in jail, or they're in a jail in another country. And hopefully they're not coming back. And we have to maintain it. You can't just leave, and we have to maintain it. We've gotten along fairly well with the mayor. You know, she's getting a party that hates that the city's becoming safe. I mean, they're actually criticizing her because the city's becoming safe. But this is becoming this is right now a very safe city. This went from the most unsafe city in the country to the safest city in the country. There's no city any safer. That's a pretty big achievement. And we really did it in 12 days. But if you add an extra week to it, that'd be nice. And I mean, you can go out to dinner. Restaurants are booming. You know, the restaurants were dead. They were dead. Even if you got to the restaurant, then somebody would come in and hold you up. You know, they'd hold up the whole restaurant. They go to Uber. Young ladies in the White House, they'd call Uber for protection. They'd run to the car because they were petrified to be from the entrance of their building to the car. Now they feel safe. They're in the car, and then the car gets hijacked while they're in the back of the car. This was what we were living in. We were living in hell. The people that work in the White House, every time they see me, young women in particular, say, thank you, sir. And I don't even ask them about what. I know exactly. I made their lives. Now they're living in a beautiful, glamorous place called Washington, D.C. with no crime, and that's the way it should be, okay? This is the death penalty for somebody that kills people in Washington, D.C. I think it's capital. It's a very interesting capital punishment, capital city, right? It's capital. But this is our capital city. We can't allow that to happen. People come in from Iowa to look at the Lincoln Memorial, and they end up getting killed. It doesn't happen anymore. It's not going to happen. And if it does happen, it's the death penalty for the person that did it. And this goes into effect.
Yes, sir.
Right? Pam, is that right?
Yes,
Could you speak a little bit about that?
Yes, sir. Not only are we seeking it in Washington, D.C., but all over the country again. And as you saw very recently, we are now moving the inmates who were on death row, who Joe Biden or the auto pen commuted their sentences off of death row. We're moving them to supermax facilities where they will be treated like they're on death row for the rest of their lives, President Trump.
Okay, that's a big statement. Thank you very much. Okay. I see some of you shaking your heads very positively. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, fellas.
You said on the campaign trail that
It
you were
said it.
for the death penalty if anybody, an illegal, killed a U.S. citizen
That's
or a
right.
police officer. So this just reinforces your campaign promise.
And Most people really like it. And Washington, again, it's going to serve as a beacon because you have to do it. These are bad people. When you look at that guy, the guy that killed the young lady in North Carolina, that he'll be in trial for years and years, years. He'll get a good lawyer somewhere along the line. Somebody will come along, and what he did to that young lady, and she went into that train scared. You know, when she went in, the way she sat down, she was scared to just be there. She just wanted to not pay any attention to anybody, just not be noticed. And she had her throat slit. We don't want that in this country anymore. We're not going to have it in this country anymore. Thank you very much. Next.
Lastly, sir, this is a presidential memorandum on countering domestic terrorism and organized political violence. In recent weeks, months, and years, we've seen a tremendous upsurge in some highly visible but also other acts of domestic terrorism and organized political violence being perpetrated by radical, politically motivated groups all over the country. What this presidential memorandum will do is set off an administration-wide response to that, ranging from the Joint Terrorism Task Forces to other components of the Department of Justice, to the Department of Homeland Security and the Department of Treasury. We're looking at interdicting these groups, preventing them from performing acts of violence, and also looking at sources of organization and funding and support that prop them up and allow them to do the acts that they have been doing.
We're looking at the funders of a lot of these groups, and you know, when you see the signs, and they're all beautiful signs made professionally. These aren't your protesters that make the sign in their basement late in the evening because they really believe it. These are anarchists and agitators, professional anarchists and agitators, and they get hired by wealthy people, some of whom I know, I guess, you know, I probably know them. And you wouldn't know it. You're at dinner with them, everything's nice, and then you find out that they funded millions of dollars to these lunatics. Steve, could you say a couple of words?
Yes,
about
Mr.
it?
President. This is a very historic and significant day. This is the first time in American history that there is an all-of-government effort to dismantle left-wing terrorism, to dismantle Antifa, to dismantle violence and terrorism. What we have seen, if you look at whether it be going back to the riots that started with Black Lives Matter and all the way through to the Antifa riots, the attacks on ICE officers, the doxing campaigns, and now the political assassinations, these are not lone, isolated events. This is part of an organized campaign of radical left terrorism. It is structured, it is sophisticated, it is well-funded, it is well-planned. There is really no parallel like this to anything else in the country right now. There is an entire system of feeder organizations that provide money, resources, weapons, and when they're attacking ICE officers, they're attacking federal buildings, or they're isolating public officials for harassment, doxing, intimidation, and ultimately attempted assassination. It is all carefully planned, executed, and thought through. It is terrorism on our soil. Because of this executive order, Cash and Pam are going to have the tools they need, working with Scott, to take these organizations apart piece by piece. The hub of that effort is going to be the Joint Terrorism Task Force, or JTTF, which sits inside the Federal Bureau of Investigation. But for those at home who are worried about terrorism in this country, they need to understand, because of President Trump's strength, because of his vision, because of his leadership, we are now going to use the entire force of the federal government to uproot these organizations root and branch. And again, that's only possible because of President Trump and his leadership.
Thank you. Steve Cash, please.
Yes, as Stephen was saying, Mr. President, thanks to your leadership, crime is going downward in a tremendous fashion, and that's what we want for every city in America. And the FBI's premier flagship enterprise, the Joint Terrorism Task Force, are honored to lead this initiative with our partners at Treasury and Homeland Security, because our citizens are being attacked by, as Stephen said, organized violence, and it's being paid for, not by them, by other people. So what we are going to do, combining forces as Scott and I have done in these last few months, is follow the money. People and organizations have collected funds and put them out in America and organized violence across our country. And thanks to your recognition of this and this executive order and the AG's leadership to lead out and prosecute these individuals, we are properly going to chase them down like the domestic terrorists that they are, and our streets and our communities are going to be safer because the JTTF and the FBI Treasury and DHS and DOJ are going to combine forces like never before to root out this new evil that is perpetrating our criminal activities across our societies. And we are just so thankful for your leadership and recognition of it. It's not easy to do.
Good job. Thank you very much,
Who
Pam.
specifically do you want to target?
What?
Besides Antifa, is there a specific group or person you're targeting in this?
Any organized group.
Any organized
Any
group?
organized group who are committing these crimes, and we're working with the Secretary of Treasury. You know what law enforcement has told us under President Trump's leadership? He's taken the handcuffs off law enforcement. They can do their jobs now, thanks to you, President Trump, and that's what's happening. And all of the agencies that Cash mentioned, we work hand in hand together. Our prosecutors were following the money with Treasury. We're working with Homeland Security. Cash's agents, all of our agents, DEA, ATF, U.S. Marshals, combined are working, and with state and local government, to take these people off the streets who are jeopardizing lives.
So I was talking with Cash and Stephen about this a couple of days ago, sir. So I believe it was in Oregon where you had a federal building where there were men in black ski masks who were committing acts of violence, who were shutting down a government building. To the president's point, they don't come from nowhere. These are paid people. This is organized. They're committing acts of political terrorism on American soil. And it's time we had a government that looked out for the American people rather than the people who are committing violence against the American people.
When you go out to Portland and you see what's happening in Portland, this is like nobody's ever seen anything like it. Every night, and this has gone on for years. They just burned the place down, and you know the shop owners, most of them have left, but the few shops that are open, they just use plywood and just like 3/4-inch plywood. They don't put storefronts in because they know it's going to be burned down. These are professional agitators.
Right.
These are bad people, and they're paid a lot of money by rich people, some of whom we know. I'm sure I know some. I don't. If I knew, I wouldn't associate because I'll be in trouble. Because Pam will say, "Why are you associating with this person?" But I will tell you that these are bad people, and they're paying a lot of money, millions of dollars. But take a look at Portland sometime. These are crazy people, and they're trying to burn down buildings, including federal buildings. And on my list of things that I want to do before we finish up with the cities, because I think we're going to whip the cities back into shape, and we have to. We cannot let our cities, and that's a small example, but it's the most violent example. It's every night, and they've done it for years. You'd think maybe at some point they made their point, but we're going to get out there, and we're going to do a pretty big number of those people in Portland that are doing that. They're professional agitators and anarchists. They're actually anarchists. Yeah. Go ahead. Why don't you defend? Let's see you defend them, Jeff.
No, I'm not defending anyone. I just want so that we can just explain this in our stories. Could you name a couple?
You don't explain it right, though, Jeff. Go ahead. Let's go. Maybe let's give you another chance. Go ahead.
Antifa, Soros. What names are we talking about?
Well, Soros is a name certainly that I keep hearing. I don't know, but Soros is the name that I hear. I hear a lot of different names. I hear names of some pretty rich people that are radical left people. Maybe I hear about a guy named Reid Hoffman. Somebody's a pretty rich guy, I guess, and I hear about him. I don't know. Maybe could be him. Could be a lot of people. We hear the same names, but they're bad, and we're going to find out. And if they are funding these things, they're going to have some problems because they're agitators and they're anarchists. These are anarchists. Really bad. Okay, yeah, please.
Mr. General, Mr. President, are you
Who you
Mr.
with?
President,
Who you with?
I'm with the Center Square. Sarah Roderikovich is my name. Sarah, there's also, as you know, Antifa is not just a domestic terror or now a domestic terror organization. It's also international. I know the Netherlands is looking at also designating them a terror organization.
Right.
Have you been working with your intel community and your DNI to possibly expand that to making them designating an international terror organization?
We have been. Yep. It's an international. In many cases, it is international.
Mr. President, on Antifa, if someone takes to the streets of America and says they're Antifa, what happens to them? What will happen to them?
Well, I'd say the maximum under the law, and we'll see. Now, if they kill somebody, we just signed a death penalty, so it depends where it is. But if they kill somebody, which they do, I mean, people are dying. You go out to Portland, people die out there. Many people have died over the years in Portland. Portland is, I don't know how anybody lives there. It's amazing. But it's anarchy out there, and that's what they want. They want anarchy, like when they attacked Seattle and took over a big percentage of the city. I was going to go out, and we were going to do a big number. They heard that, and everybody broke up all of a sudden. But, you have governors that have to run that, and a lot of them don't do that. I don't like to go in. I'd rather have Pritzker's support when we go into Chicago. But if we don't have it, that's okay, too, because we're paramount, and we will do what we have to do. We're going to make Chicago safe. We're going to make we're going to make as many as we can, and usually that involves a surge. But what we did with, in the case of Chicago, by having the FBI go out there 5 or 6 months ago, we brought it down a little bit. A little bit is 25%, so it's not so little, but it is when you're talking about the kind of crime and killings and murders that you hear in Chicago. But we're going to get it. Chicago's a great city. As the Union Pacific said, the head of the Union Pacific, who's a great guy, started off as a low-rung guy. He said he started at a caboose, and now he's the chairman of the Union Pacific. But he's a great guy. But he said, "Sir, don't lose Chicago." The way he said it, I said, boy, it really hit me. Here's a man that knows all the cities. The Union Pacific, I guess, is our largest railroad, and he knows all the cities. He's been doing it for 45 years, and he said, "Sir, don't lose Chicago." And the way he said that meant a lot to me, and we're going to go into Chicago very soon. We're going to take care of Memphis. We're going to take care of Memphis. You can't walk a block without getting shot. We're going to take care of that one, and just like we did Washington, D.C., and we're going to do Chicago very soon. Yeah.
Mr. President, we heard there could be an indictment on James Comey. Do you know if there is an indictment, or Madam Attorney
I
General?
don't know. I know it's going on because I read the papers just like you do, right? So I don't know. Do you have anything to say about that?
We can't comment on that.
Yeah.
Madam Attorney General, can you comment on a New York Times? Madam Attorney General, can you comment on a New York Times report saying that Justice Department officials have asked attorneys to target a George Soros-funded group? And is this executive order that you just signed a part of that?
I'm not going to comment on whether there is or is not a pending investigation, but everything's on the table right now.
I don't think anybody has to ask, because if you look at Soros, he's at the top of every. In fact, sometimes they say, could he be involved in this many things? But he's in every story that I read. Stories that I read keep talking about Soros, and so I guess he'd be a likely candidate. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, guys. Let's go. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Let's go.
President Trump signing important executive orders, including the TikTok situation and also the death penalty in Washington, D.C., among others, to secure and continue in trade discussions with nations abroad. Thank you to mypillow.com/RSBN for sponsoring us here on Right Side Broadcasting Network. A 6-piece towel set back in stock. The regular going for $70, now down to under $40, $39.98, a very limited quantity. MyPillow.com/RSBN. Call today. Don't delay. It's 800-836-7566. If you like what you see here at Right Side Broadcasting Network, you can donate. RSBNetwork.com/donate or text RSBN to 801-801. We also have a physical address for check and money order at 1550 Opelika Road, Suite 6, Box 344, Auburn, Alabama, the loveliest village on the plains, 36830. That's 1550 Opelika Road, Suite 6, Box 344, Auburn, Alabama, 36830. Thank you for staying with us today for unbridled coverage and access to the government you put into place back on November 5th of last year. And stick with us tonight on RSBN Primetime at the top of the hour, 6 o'clock, the voice of reason. Be sure to tune in tonight. And thank you for supporting us all along the way as we are with you, America. For all of my colleagues here at Right Side Broadcasting Network, have a wonderful evening, and make sure that you catch all those America First updates and exclusive offers at rsbnetwork.com/newsletter. I think we switched the weather. It's a little bit rainy outside here in Auburn, and a beautiful sunset and the sunshine in the federal city. I'm Robert McNeely. For, again, all of my colleagues here at Right Side Broadcasting Network, good night and God bless you. Stick around. 6 o'clock. It's the voice of reason.
Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network, your trusted conservative news outlet. At RSBN, we deliver the truth when the mainstream media falls short. Since 2015, we've proudly broadcasted every single one of President Trump's iconic MAGA rallies, bringing you the excitement and energy live before anyone else. By watching RSBN, you get an unfiltered front row view of the action on the ground. We interview the crowds to give a voice to millions of Americans just like you. We show you President Trump's speeches in their entirety, free from interruptions and censorship. We cover the stories that matter to you with the integrity and passion you deserve. Thank you for choosing RSBN as your home for America First News. Together, we stand strong, united, and informed. So join us and be part of the right side of history.
Hey y'all, it's Silk from the Diamond and Silk Chit Chat live show. Look, don't forget to check me out right here on RSBN Network. Be sure to watch the show on Right Side Broadcasting Network, and I want you to support Right Side Broadcasting Network. Yes, it's imperative that you do so, okay? I look to see y'all soon. Bye-bye.
allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. You can scan that QR code now, RSBN10. That is the code, easy to remember, for 10% off. This is ivermectin, hydrochloroquine, antibiotics that will save you and yours from bacterial and viral infections, NAD+, and much, much more. 200 essential medications and emergency medical kits, the meds you trust delivered to your door.